Here are changes seen as you use ELDs. You can get more details on the AOBRD to ELD transition site. We'll show you changes to how ERODs are collected, and the more stringent ELD mandate interpretation that you need to be aware of. These changes may mean that your company updated or created new company-wide policies. Contact your fleet administrator to help explain any policy changes. The Hours of Service interface has visual and functional changes that you see as you perform your day-to-day tasks. We'll cover those and provide best practices. If your company provides a bag unit, you may practice what you've learned in a safe environment so that you can learn new processes without affecting your logs of record. Additionally, your company may provide follow-up training after your initial training and again later as they identify common issues drivers encounter. In this section, we'll see the changes to how ELDs function and point out concepts that you need to be aware of. Though the screens shown here are from an IVG, the MCP has the same features and functions, even if the screens look a little different. The ELD mandate requires that the driver manual be available in cab, but does not have to be a printed document. If an inspection officer asks to see the ELD's manual, navigate to the home screen, tap the driver training button, and open the Hours of Service module to show the driver manual for this ELD. You must also have the ELD driver card and malfunction sheet, as well as 8 days of blank paper logs in cab. With ELDs, there is no minimum duty status. The drive status begins the second the wheels move. All drive time is recorded to the second, and if there are any violations, they're triggered the second you're in violation. This means that if you have to move your vehicle during a break, the break is interrupted, and you must restart your break and annotate your logs to indicate why. To ensure that your hours are accurate and that another driver's drive time is not associated with the wrong driver's ID, you must completely log out of the ELD at the end of trip, end of day, and in preparation for swapping drivers or vehicles. To completely log out, turn off the engine and log out of the ELD from the driver login button on the home screen. This ensures that engine data is collected and recorded on your ERODs and that no other driver, like a yard jockey or mechanic, adds drive time to your logs. With ELDs, all drivers may edit their logs, but neither drivers nor back office can shorten drive time. If you end up with another driver's drive time, the back office may reassign it to the correct driver and assign you to a different duty status during that time. Both drivers must approve the host-initiated edits before your log updates. To avoid this issue, be sure to log out at the end of trip, end of day, and when swapping vehicles. And when slip seating, indicate that you are the active driver before pulling away. You are prompted to certify logs upon log in and log out, and certification is done per 24-hour period, not all uncertified logs at once. If you don't certify a day or days, you are prompted at log in and log out to certify all prior logs. If the back office edits your certified logs, you must review and recertify them. Carrier edits are not automatically applied to your logs, but instead, you must review and accept or reject them from an ELD. Until you accept or reject the proposed changes, they are shown as pending in the back office application. Your company may have defined a policy around how to resolve conflicts between the back office and drivers related to log edits. Be sure to ask your administrator if this is the case. A unit is an AOBRD or ELD based on the vehicle, not the driver. So if you switch cabs, you may notice inconsistencies between AOBRDs and ELDs. Check the mode when logging into a unit in a new cab by going to the Hours of Service, Day Log, Header, and the mode is the fourth line in the right column. If a driver doesn't log in and moves the vehicle, unassigned vehicle activity accumulates on the ELD, and the next driver to log in is prompted to accept it. If you see an alert that looks like this, closely review the proposed changes and accept or reject them as appropriate. If after 8 days no driver logs into the ELD to accept or reject it, the back office manually reassigns the drive time to a driver, and you may see a carrier edit alert. If no load information is provided, you are prompted to provide it for prior days at first login, then again at first duty status change, and at logout. The FMCSA agrees that if deadheading or bobtailing, NA is an acceptable comment. AOBRDs began their trip when you met either the beginning of trip speed or distance threshold. These thresholds prevented minor movements, such as movement within a yard, from triggering the start of trip. Under the ELD mandate, all vehicle movement is recorded and must be assigned to a driver. Beginning of trip is triggered when the vehicle speed is equal to or greater than 5 miles per hour, 8 kilometers per hour, and there is no distance trigger. When the wheels turn, you are bumped into the driving status, possibly affecting rest brakes. If you are required to move during a rest break, you must restart your brake and annotate your log to indicate why the brake was interrupted. The end of trip threshold is triggered after 5 minutes of no movement, and you're presented with a pop-up asking, "Vehicle stopped for 5 minutes, switch to on duty?" If you respond yes, you are put into on duty and the activity is recorded at the time when the wheels stop moving. If you respond no, you remain in drive. If you don't respond, after 1 additional minute you are transitioned to on duty, and the activity is reported as the time when the wheels stopped moving 6 minutes ago. In addition to requiring a duty status, you are prompted to certify your logs and enter any missing load or carrier information. The drive duty status is automatically set when the wheels move, and drive time is associated with the active driver. This duty status cannot be manually selected and is recorded in your logs the second movement starts. By default, the first driver to log into the ELD is the active driver. The second driver to log in is prompted to identify as the active or inactive driver. As an additional security measure, the ELD mandate requires a password challenge when a co-driver attempts to see or modify logs. And as always, if you cannot log in, contact your fleet administrator. If your company allows you to record drive time that takes place in a private yard without public access as yard move, the ELD records it without mileage or time limit. You manually select this duty status and end the duty status by selecting another duty status, shutting off the in-cab unit, or when a 20 mile per hour, 31 kilometer per hour speed threshold is met. You'll see this yard move time on your on-duty line, and it does not add drive time since it's an on-duty status. Be aware that yard move is selectable only when the ignition is on. When in personal conveyance on the ELD, the vehicle's position accuracy is limited to a 10-mile, 16-kilometer radius, and there is no distance or time limit. You may be alerted when you near a company-defined personal conveyance limit, but you are not automatically moved into the drive duty status if that threshold is exceeded. Personal conveyance is a special case of the off-duty status, so if you're permitted to use it, you'll start in off-duty, then when the wheels move, you're in personal conveyance. When the wheels stop, you're again off-duty, then back in personal conveyance when the wheels turn again. To end this duty status, you must select a different duty status, shut off the engine, and log out of the ELD. Your ELD cab card lists these new sensor and malfunction alerts. Your company can provide more details and a troubleshooting handout. When the back office edits your logs, you must review and approve or reject the suggested change. If running a mixed AOBRD ELD fleet, you'll need to log into an ELD to accept or reject these edits. Be aware that neither personal conveyance nor yard move may be changed to a non-driving status by directly changing the duty status type. But if that time should be allocated to another driver, the back office can swap it between drivers. Both drivers have to accept the change for the update to display on your logs. This section covers changes to the hours of service interface that you'll see on the ELD. During a roadside inspection, you can switch to inspector mode by tapping the Daylog tab and tapping Inspector. Tap Driver to switch back. With inspector mode on, tap the header button to reveal information that the inspection officer may need. Tap Done to close the header. When the back office edits your logs, this alert pops up and you'll need to review and accept or reject the changes. If you reject the edits, you must provide a reason why. Be sure to closely review the proposed changes since it affects your logs of record. When you see the pop-up, tap Review Carrier Edits, then Reject or Confirm before you enter a comment and save. With these changes, you now send logs from the Day Log tab by tapping eRODS. The inspection officer will tell you what transfer method to select. Then you'll enter the officer's identifying information in the comment, close the keyboard, and send it. If you didn't provide load or carrier information for a prior load, you are prompted to enter it the next time you log in. If you don't provide load or carrier information for your current load, you are prompted to provide it before you log out. As stated earlier, these are new alerts. You cannot clear malfunctions, and you're required to use paper logs from the moment a malfunction is triggered. The performance monitoring pop-up may appear after login and asks if unassigned accumulated engine hours should be credited to you. This does not affect your hours of service, but does increment your performance monitoring drive time. Certification is the same as approving logs, but it must be done every 24 hours, and you certify logs in 24-hour segments, not all uncertified logs at the same time. The change of duty status screen looks different, but it functions the same way. Unless you're enabled for special conditions like personal conveyance or yard move, you won't see that option listed. For duty statuses that require a comment, the OK button is grayed out until you provide at least one remark. ELD-exempt drivers send AOBRD logs to an email address from the 8-Day tab. If the inspection officer asks that you send eRODS by email, it goes to a generic FMCSA email address, not directly to the officer. The officer must go to an FMCSA system to find those logs. If you have any questions about what was covered in this video, contact your fleet administrator.